Ben, thanks for leading us in worship this morning. Welcome to the Mosaic service. My name is Matt Kuman. I'm the pastor here and excited to worship with you all today. Anyone sick of the heat wave that we had? To the point where you're ready for snow? Oh, Phil, guy, I like you, Phil. Yeah, you're crazy. Yeah, it was a great week this week. Just so you know, we've got the Whitecaps game coming up this week, Tuesday. I do have a few additional tickets, so if you are still interested in coming, we did get a few extra. For those of you who did get them, I've got them in my office, so make sure you grab those before you leave today. We have been in a series on the Ten Commandments, and for me, even before this series started approaching these, it seemed as though it was almost like God giving us a list of rules. And as we've gotten deeper into this, I know for me it's been truly life-giving to see that they're not so much rules, but more so God giving these things as gifts. Like, hey, if you live in this way, there's things that you won't have to worry about. Right? If you do not commit adultery, you won't be stressed about what your spouses are doing. You can live in love and harmony in that way. And that goes through all of these. And I can't believe we're already on week 8. We'll be looking at the do not steal section today. But I truly hope that you've been able to catch these as glimpses of what God has gifted us and not so much guidelines for how we have to live life. So we're going to jump right in. I want to quick pull up the artwork for this week because we've had different people throughout the church creating what they picture these commands to be. And this one, if you can't see, it's a raccoon in the center who's balancing lots of sweet treats around him and yet still going for the trash can. We're going to unpack that a little bit more towards the end of this message. But without further ado, let's jump in. We're going to be in Exodus 20, and we'll be reading through the whole 10 Commandments. I know at this point it is getting very familiar, but that's a good thing. I hope that you can almost recite it as I'm saying this. So let's jump right into Exodus 20, starting in verse 1. God spoke all these words, "For I, the Lord your God, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself in the form of anything in the heaven above or in the earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I am the Lord your God. I'm a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall do no work. Neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord has given you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery, and you shall not steal. You shall not steal. When I was in middle school, I remember this very vividly. My family, we were very involved in church, like in youth groups. So our Wednesday night programming, there'd be like a full meal, kind of like what we have at Gather here on Wednesdays during the year. So we'd all go for dinner, my whole family, and then me and my sister would hang out for youth group afterwards. And my parents would head home for a while and then come back later and pick us up. And on the way home, my parents are driving, and they get to our house, and they see that there's lights on in the house, which, I don't know about you, but I grew up in a house where you shut off all the lights, and Dad shouts at you when you don't. And I've realized, like, as a dad now, I'm becoming that. Like, in the 90 degrees, my daughters think it's fun to have all the doors open. I'm like... And then I start using the phrase like, "Are you trying to cool the outside?" And I'm like, "Oh my word, I'm becoming my father," right? It's like, what are you doing? So I grew up in that kind of a house. You shut the lights off when you leave before you go. And I know it was towards fall, so they could see as they were approaching the house that the lights were on. And as they come into the driveway, they notice that there's a car in the driveway. It's not really supposed to be there. So my dad pulls up and realizes that the garage door is also open, and they realize that this is probably not right. So the smart thing to do, the thing that the textbooks would say to do, would be to leave and call 911, call the cops, and let the cops deal with it, right? So like a good man, he did not do that, and my dad pulls up behind this car. And he tells my mom, write the license plate number down. She does that, and then he tells her, run across the road and call 911, call the cops. Because this was before cell phones. Like, what a dangerous world we lived in before cell phones. And so my mom ran across the road. It was about a quarter mile away to get to the nearest neighbor, but she runs across and does that. And my dad at that point gets out of the car and realizes that there's somebody in the passenger seat. And that guy in the passenger seat is starting to honk the horn. It's like, ooh, this is probably not a good thing. And so my dad at that point gets out of the car, goes up to the car in front, and he opens the driver's door, reaches in, turns off that car, and pulls the keys out of the car. You're probably picturing my dad as being similar to like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. Like, similar to my build, right? Like, yeah, it's easy. But my dad is very much similar build to me, but a little bit shorter. We do not belong in places that we're turning cars off and taking the keys out. We call bigger people to do that, right? But Dad did not do that in this case. So he takes the keys out. And he asks the guy, what are you doing here? And the guy says, oh, my buddy's just saying hi to his girlfriend. And my dad was very concerned about his wife committing adultery right there, right? In that nature, but my mom's good. And so my dad takes the keys and he starts walking into the garage. And as he walks in the garage, he notices in the garage door to go into the house, there's a big old boot print on it. And as he's about to walk through the front door, he hears our porch door, which is on the front of the house, bust open. And at this point, he starts walking out of the garage, and he sees a bigger guy put a laundry basket full of stuff into the car. It was our favorite laundry basket. We're still bummed about that. And so this guy in the passenger seat shouts at the guy putting the laundry basket in. He says, that guy in the garage has your keys. And so this guy starts coming into the garage at my dad with his hand in his jacket. I'll let you do your imagination with what you will with that. And he says, if you don't give me my keys back, I'm going to shoot you. And my dad has good discernment in this moment and says, okay, and gives him the keys back. Probably the first good decision he made at that night. And so the guy gets in his car with our stuff and his buddy, and they start pulling back and forth. Now, my dad had parked so close to him, they had to start doing that. And in all of that, my dad got into my car, which was in the stall next to it, and opens up the garage door, turns the car on like he's going to follow him. Now, this guy who had just taken all of our things was pretty ticked. So he stops the car after trying to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He gets out of the car, comes back into the garage, and tells my dad, turn off the car, or I'm going to shoot you, and this time it's really going to hurt. Because the first shot would have only just grazed him, right? And so just crazy. And so my dad, of good discernment again, shuts the garage door and turns off his car. And by that point, the guy had taken his car and had driven off with all of our stuff. Shortly thereafter, the cops show up. But when we think about this do not steal, that's what we picture. Right? Those moments where people are very much stealing things that belong to us. Or we picture people who belong in jail like that. That guy ended up being found months later, and he did spend some jail time. And we all agree that's right? Like, you should not take things that are not your own. And when we read through this, many of them that we do have so far, right? You read through this, you're like, oh, do not steal. I don't do that. I don't have to worry about that. Perfect. I don't even need to show up today. Like, we can check that one off the list and not even worry about it. But God says do not steal, and I hope that after today, and I know for me as I've done the research into it, I've realized I'm more guilty of this than I actually thought. And I hope that we can see, okay, how do we actually disobey this one, and how can we shift our lives in our direction in order to do this well? So So let's look at what is stealing to God. We see throughout the Bible, there's a lot in the Old Testament. Jesus speaks to some as well in the New Testament. But stealing is more than just this simple idea of taking somebody else's things, like the guy who robbed us that night, right? It's more than just that of possessions. Stealing throughout the Bible, we see this involves ensuring accuracy. We see that in Leviticus 19. The moving of boundaries. Deuteronomy 19, like they'd have big pastures and people would slowly move the boundaries to create more and more property. So that is stealing. The taking of property. Kidnapping is the stealing of somebody. Robbing the elderly and cutting of corners. The list goes on. Withholding of wages. You're stealing from people who are expecting those wages. Failing to repay debts. Pretending not to have money when you really do. Devaluing items for the purpose of profit. Not returning something found that is yours, cheating on taxes, wasting things that could be a blessing to others. These are all throughout the Bible of when we look at this word of stealing and robbery. Causing willful damage, injustice, dishonoring contractual agreements, going back on your word, laziness, breaking promises, assault. Right, you are stealing somebody's joy in that way. Robbing God by not returning his tithes. We'll get into that one as well. But I want to spend a few minutes talking about that first section of that in how we treat other people and the things we potentially steal from other people without even realizing it. I read a joke this week that a wife is at home, and her husband gets home, and she goes out to him just distraught about herself, saying, our housemaid, the person who's been cleaning for us, has stolen our towels. And the husband goes, what? And it's like, what towels did she take? And this wife says, our Holiday Inn ones. Right? And the husband goes, no, not the Holiday Inn ones. Right? Those are the ones we loved the thread count in. Right? They had the cute little logo on the bottom corner that we loved. Right? Oh, not those towels. Right? We think about funny stories, but like how real is that? When we think of a corporation like Holiday Inn, where we don't think twice about maybe taking some of those small things. I had a few buddies when we. Shortly after right after college. And many of them were starting to get houses and stuff, and we'd go to Applebee's, and the way they stocked their glassware is they would take home, I don't want Applebee's hearing this. Can we edit this out later? No tech guys back there. Well, that's fine. So they would take the glasses. They would take the glasses after they would have their drink, and they would like put them in their jacket, and they would walk out with them. It's like, well, Applebee's has got plenty of glasses. They don't need this glass. They won't even notice this is gone. Right? How often can we justify some of these little things that are very much true to what God is saying in this? Or the eighth command, the 10 Commandments says, do not steal. And yet this idea of stealing and thievery is so part of our lives we don't even notice it. Right? The statistics on department store theft are crazy. Or we don't even realize that when we walk into many places, how many cameras are truly on us. Right? It's not because they're just curious how many people are coming in. It's because they're looking to see what people are stealing, what people are taking, if people are taking things. And maybe it's like, okay, I still haven't done any of that stuff. But let's keep going further. We buy vehicles or quads or dirt bikes or toys, something with motors and wheels in them. And when we get the title, we have to write in how much we paid for that. Ooh, quieter now, isn't it? Right, and how often do we fuzz the truth on how much we actually paid for it? Because, it's going to cost more if I write in the actual number. So if I fuzz it by $1,000, I get to save $60 whole dollars. It's like taking a coupon and giving that to the state, right? Like, how often do we do that? We pay taxes, but do we claim everything we should on taxes? We think, well, the government's never going to know. They don't manage money well to begin with. Why would I give them more money to mismanage, right? How does that work? Why do we need to do that? And we cut them short as well. I mean, if you think you're scot-free, continue. If you've been a really good person up to this point, and you can say, yes, I'm good on all of those things, let's take it one step further. We also steal people's time, don't we? Or even if we think about just our workplaces and the way we steal our time in workplaces, statistically, the average American spends over 3 hours per day on their phone during work. 46 minutes on social media, 33 minutes on texting or messaging, 30 minutes on podcasts, 27 minutes streaming videos, 15 minutes playing games, 13 minutes online shopping. Right, the list goes on. And we quickly run in and get on the clock, and we spend hours and hours on our phone. We're stealing time. And we think, but it's not hurting anyone. No one's going to notice. I still do my job. But what does this actually do for us? Right? What are we actually doing in these things? And it isn't all about production, right, at work. But if we've said we've come to do a job and we're getting paid for the hours we're working, are we actually following God's law in what he says for the way we work? All right, I want to bring us into the New Testament because Jesus has something very specific to say about these things and also how God fits into this equation as well. We're going to jump into Mark 12, starting at verse 15. And if you've been with us before, you'll notice we tend to jump into what Jesus has to say about it. And in this moment of the story, Jesus is being asked by the religious leaders who are out to get him. They're trying to get him caught in a lie. So the Pharisees, in verse 15, then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians. Teacher, they said, we know that you're a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? Right, in this day and age, there were many Jews in that nation that didn't believe in what Rome was doing, or that Aryan nation. And so this is a very real question for them. Do we have to pay what they want? It's not even fair, really, what they're doing. Verse 18, but Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax. They brought him a denarius, and he asked them, whose image is on this, and whose inscription? Caesar's, they replied. Then he said to them, so give back to Caesar what is Caesar, and give to God's what is God's. And when they heard this, they were amazed. So they left him and went away. Give to Caesar what is Caesar, and give to God's what is God's. And I hope even in 20 minutes into this, we can understand as we look through illustrations of what it means to do not steal, that even the things we've tried to get away with, even those little small things that we don't think anyone notices that really don't even hurt anyone. We can be honest about that. A lot of things we do don't necessarily hurt anyone, but we can get, I believe we can all get to the point where we say, no, but that is probably wrong, right? It is probably something we need to think about in a different light. But this next question changes. So what is God's then? Right? If we believe giving Caesar what is Caesar's, I'll give to people what is their due. Even if we don't believe it's okay, fine, we'll still give it to you even if I think you're going to manage it poorly or if I don't even think you're going to notice. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. But the second part, give to God what is God's. What does that mean? I want to take us to a book that's shortly before the New Testament, the book of Malachi. And we don't have time to get into the context of this story too terrible much. But in short, God is speaking to the people of Israel, his people, shortly before Jesus is coming onto the scene. And he's having this he's saying these things to them. He says this, but you ask, how are we robbing you? So this is what he says to the people. In tithes and offerings, you are under a curse, your whole nation, because you are robbing me. bringing the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be enough room to store it. I will prevent pests from devouring your crops, and vines in your fields will not drop their fruit before it's ripe, says the Lord Almighty. Then all the nations will call you blessed, for yours will be delightful land, says the Lord Almighty. You see, in this, what God is doing is he's referencing this robbery that his people, the Israelites, have been doing against him. But what I find fascinating is God is not accusing Israel of being like stingy, right? Like, you're not giving me enough, right? Or even unloving, like you don't love me in the way that I'm asking you to do. They are charged with straight up robbing God, from stealing from God in this. And that implies that they are taking something that does not belong to them, right? Robbing, stealing is taking something that does not belong to them. So we see in this that God clearly views the tithes and offerings of his people, if that's withheld from him, as a version of stealing, as a version of robbing him. And I want to be clear here. This isn't going to quickly turn into you need to tithe message. But I want us to understand that God does not need our money. Right? We don't send your giving record from community up to heaven and let God know where you came in at the end of the year. Right? That's just not something that happens. God doesn't need our money. He wants our heart. Right? That's what God has always wanted. God has always wanted our heart. That's what belongs to him. But I think for us to push onto the tithes and offering things, a big way to give God our heart is to give him our finances and open our hands up to what God has given us, and realizing that the way we spend our money, the way we spend our time and our priorities often has our heart. Right, so if we are going to give God our heart, I would argue one of the best ways to do that is by participating and being active in the tithes and offerings. So what do we do with this? What do we do with this whole understanding of, okay, we do realize we steal from people, and when we look at our lives, we probably steal from God as well in this. So looking at people and God, how do we do this with people first, and how do we change it? I think first, we need to change the mindset that many of us bring into this room, that I bring into this room as well, that no one is going to miss it. Right? Change the mindset of they're not going to notice it. They have plenty. I'm not hurting anyone. Right? This is going to age some of us here, but anyone remember burning CDs back in the day? Oh, one honest person, please. Yeah, there we go. Right? Like, yeah, that should not have been allowed. We're stealing music rights from people who are trying to sell their music in other ways. Right? It's just simple things like that. Like oh, they're getting enough though. They'll have no idea. I'm not hurting anyone. And that is the mindset that I think we need to shift in our lives, that we may not be doing any of those things. We may not be hurting anyone. They may not notice. We may never get caught for those things. But yet God is challenging us to something better, that it is theirs. And we're robbing them by taking it from them, even if they don't know. Another funny illustration, I think we even see this in grocery store grapes, right? When you're at the grocery store, you need to test the grapes, right? Make sure they're good before you buy a whole bundle of them. You take one or two. I think that makes sense. I would say that's fine. But then you go parade through the store, and all of a sudden you've had 4 pounds of grapes, and you get to the cash register, and there's just one little clump, and then you pay for that. Right? Like, it's the little things that we think in our lives, oh, this isn't a big deal. But it's not ours. And I think what God is trying to say in this is, the best way to live, the way for you to live with truly the most blessing in your life, is to approach these things in that way. Do not steal. And we do the same thing with God. Right? God doesn't need our money. God doesn't need our tithe. He doesn't need our time and energy. But for me, when I've looked at this, and something that's been the most helpful for processing through this, is realizing that God has given us everything that we have. Right? God has given me everything that I have. And when I go about living life in that posture, I realize that when I'm holding tight onto my things, I'm actually robbing God. Right? And I'm stealing from him because I'm not allowing him to do some beautiful things with that. Right? I thought of an interesting illustration. When, say, I take McKenna to get dinner, right? And I just order her a burger and fries, and I just sit there looking at her, and I say, hey, can I have a fry? And she says, no, these are my fries. Actually, you didn't pay for those. They're all mine, right? But I've given these for you because I want you at your best. And I think for us, if we use that same illustration with God, God has given us some incredible blessings in our lives. God has given us great talents and time that we can use. And the question is, are we stealing from him in the way we're using those things? Are we using our money? Are we using our time? Are we using our talents to the best of our abilities? And I think once we realize for us that God has given not only us those things, but all the people around us all those same things, we start looking at this whole do not steal much differently. And understand this as we wrap up today, that this command is a gift. Right? It truly is a gift. It helps us realize that as a people of God, if we believe in God and serve Jesus Christ, that as a people of God, we don't have to steal. It's one of those things that we can realize God will provide for our lives in the way that he best sees fit. I want to bring us back to the artwork today. And at first glance, and I encourage you with the artwork, all of these artwork pieces are right outside the gym. Make sure you take a closer look at them if you can't see it real close. But it's this beautiful image, and if we think about our own lives and the things that God has given us, the beautiful things, often we get so focused on what the world is doing, the trash that may be in our lives, and focusing on that we forget the blessings of our lives, and we try to steal things from around us. So I think have that in our minds. Sometimes we miss the value of what God has truly given us. Don't reach for the things that don't belong to you. Would you pray with me? God, we thank you for today. And we thank you for the blessing of your word and being able to really look at it today. And God, I know many of us in here didn't walk in with the understanding that we have an issue with stealing. But God, I ask that you put on our hearts some things that need to be addressed. And give us the courage and the motivation to go after those things. Give us grace when we fail, and help us to be the best version of ourselves that you can help us be. Let us be the light for the world, because when we live in such a way, our world will be asking why. So give us the strength to be that light in a world that so desperately needs to hear it. In your name we pray. Amen.